This video is brought to you in conjunction with Black Labrador Creations, but more from them later.
Hello everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed our last little tutorial on some miniature painting, and today we're going to have a look at another one. Now, 2025 is the 250th anniversary of the start of the American Revolutionary War, or the American Rebellion, or the American War of Independence, depending on how you prefer to refer to it. So, we're going to do some historical American Revolution 6mm. Now, if you notice, these are extremely small. The Space Marine that we did last time is approximately 32mm tall. That's quite a common scale for Wargaming figures. But these are in the epic scale, 6mm. That's 6mm from the base to the eye level. So obviously to accommodate for different hats. These are metal miniatures, or white metal miniatures, from Bacchus Miniatures, and there'll be a link to their site as well on the video. One of my favourite suppliers of 6mm models, always all in metal. They don't do plastic at the moment, or resin, but they come in various size packs. This particular pack at the moment is from the American Revolutionary Army pack. You can get basically an entire pack in one. But let's have a look at them. This is basically just one unit. So I've supplied the bases myself. These are just laser cut 3mm thick MDF. These are 20 by 20 millimeters. So what we're going to do is, in the end, these will form a unit of 3 bases. And that means that in various games, you can spread them out, you can keep them in line, you can turn them into square, you can put them in a column for march. So there are various ways to base them, but how we're going to do it is my own basing for rule sets such as Black Powder, where you need to be in line to do battle and in march column to march along the road. But let's have a look at the models themselves. So as you see, rather than one model, they come on little strips. So each strip, let's just zoom in so you can see there, has 4 little grenadiers on them. So these are British Grenadiers, quite iconic troops of the American Revolution. Every regiment of the British Army would have a company of these, usually picked as the tallest men. Quite often they'll be at least 6 feet tall, and they would wear a large bearskin cap on top to further accentuate their size. They came originally from assault troops, hence the term grenadiers, because they would throw grenados or grenades through the breaches of walls of fortifications. But in the end they became less reliant on their grenades, more on their firelock muskets, flintlock muskets that they're carrying, and just became more of an elite company. And now, in the American Revolution period, these companies will be all grouped together to make entire battalions of grenadiers, but we're just going to do these as one company of grenadiers. So, as you see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips of 4 each, and the pack will always come with a command stand here, and you see there's another couple of grenadiers here. There's a drummer, his drum and bearskin cap, and this, you'll see the details later, is an officer, so he's going to have a waist sash on to show that he's on duty, and he's also carrying a firelock as well. Hopefully the soundtrack music will be the British Grenadiers, and one of the lyrics to that is that our leaders march with fusils, and our leaders march with a fusel, which is a shortened form of a musket, whilst normally leaders, officers would march with a spontoon or a half pike at this point as a badge of office. But Grenadier officers march with a musket as well. So what we're going to do is, when we've finished, they're going to be on their bases like this, and we're going to have 2 strips on each base with the leader in the middle. So as you see, in a very small amount of space, you can have an entire unit of 24 Grenadiers on a frontage that's only 60 millimeters, 6 centimeters across. And that's, you see. So, as you can put them in, that's how they'll look marching in a column, marching to the sound of the guns. So, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to basically mount these on a painting strip I have with me basically an old lolly stick. You see, this is well used, a decent sized one, and just attached a long sausage of blue tack to it. Now what we're going to do is, first of all, we're just going to give these a bit of a clean up. Now, if you're working with plastic and resin models, quite often they have mould lines around the edge. Now, these tend to have very much less mould lines. All the mould lines are so small, it really doesn't pick up. But what I tend to do is just take the edge of a craft knife and I just clean up the bottom of these, just where the base is going to glue onto the MDF base itself. So I'm literally going to take the bottom and literally just scrape, just to clean off any residual moulding or flashing there. Just keep it nice and clean and tidy. Now, so I am scraping towards my own thumb, but if you can see, I'm keeping the blade away from my fingers where possible. Again, as this is metal, the newer mould line removers that you can get from various manufacturers won't have much of an effect. I've not tried them myself, but they won't have much of an effect because this is a white metal, not unlike a pewter rather than a plastic or a resin. But that's all we need for that. Just nip those last bits off, keep them tidy. And obviously at this point I might actually just pull and just gently turn any and just pull them into a straight line, just to make sure they're not too bent and twisted. Now, what we do is literally mount these on this piece of blue tack here. So we should have enough on here for all 6. I'm going to put the command stand on one side, so we'll start each stage with them, and then we'll just go along the lines. And what this will allow us to do is, rather than painting each individual model, we're basically going to do each stage and production line the entire strip. So we'll do all the red, all the facings, all the woodwork, all the leatherwork, all the faces, and once we finish that, the entire unit will be done in one job. And that's the very good thing with these smaller scales, is that you can complete an awful lot a lot quicker than you could if you were using 28mm to do a battalion of 24 British Grenadiers. That might take you quite a long time, though of course they would look very good. Right, so there they are. And what we're going to do is we're going to undercoat spray those with some black spray, and then they're ready to begin. And welcome back. So after a quick spray of black undercoat in a well ventilated area, of course, there we have our unit all sprayed black and ready to begin. Now obviously if you're doing larger amounts you can do multiple units like this. I've been known to do a brigade or so over the course of a weekend, but we're just going to focus on this one. So let's have a look at the paints we're going to be using. So again, we're using I'm just using some Citadel paints, and what we're going to use is for their famous red coats, a good solid red, corn red in this case, quite a nice deep madder-esque red. We're going to do them with facing colours of yellow. That's quite common during the American Revolution, so the coats are red and the cuffs and collar will be a different colour in every regiment. In this case we're going to do yellow because they were present at some of the first engagements of the Revolutionary War, especially the battles of Lexington and Concord in April of 1775. And then we're going to use a white for leatherwork and accoutrements. Now that's obviously your straps and slings and belts, and also their waistcoats and their knee breeches and socks. Those are all going to be in an off-white. I'm going to go with a little bit of this one, grey cere. Then we'll be obviously using a fairly straightforward Kislev flesh for their skin areas, faces and hands. And then for the muskets, we'll use a Rhinoxide dark brown for the stocks and the metallic Ironbreaker for the barrels. So you'll literally have lock, stock and barrel. See what I did there? Right, so that's our selection of paints. We'll get on and make a start with them with the first stage. So our next stage, we're going to go with a little bit of grey cere. We're going to do the leatherwork and accoutrements. There's quite a lot of the whitened bits of the leatherwork. So again, we're going to take the same amount. Let's put a little bit on the side there. That should do us. Maybe a little more. And pop this away. Just wipe it on the palette. And you notice I sort of twist the brush slightly as I do, just to keep the point as sharp as we can. Obviously, as I said, this is just the one brush to do the entire unit. You can, if you're feeling less confident, use smaller brushes. There are many, many different sizes of brush. But I've always found this one with a good point on it is more than enough for the job in question. So let's have a look at where we're going. So I'm going to do, let's see, so the crossbelts go, as we're looking at it, right to left. So you see the officer's got a tiny little crossbelt on here. So I'm going to just do that, just brush that along there. That sergeant's is just in there. Again, we're going to get a bit on the hand there, but it doesn't really matter. We are going to clean that up and tidy it up later. Let's do the white strap on the drum. And we're just going to brush this lightly over the drum because there's little ropes, which any drummers out there will tell you is used to tighten the drum skin, give it a good sound. So I'm just going to just lightly brush over that. There we go. And that's going to turn it this way. And just sort of go in there, and we'll do this all the way along just to pick out the crossbelt. Now that's going to go on the hand and the cuff a little on each model, but that's fine because we're going to tidy that up later on. And then we're just going to go along and basically do a light dry brush on the leg areas as well, just to show their breeches and stockings. And this is not a stage I'm going to spend a great deal of time on, because there's probably more detail on the back with the white stage, if we're quite honest. Again, if you're doing this, there are some units in the army that had white facings. So again, this would essentially be a good point to do all the white facings as well. So if anything, they're rather easier. So people like the 17th foot, 47th foot, they had white facings, so it'd be quite easy to do that. So straight away, looking a little bit more soldierly already, we'll carry on. We'll do the straps on the back, and then we'll do the stockings and so on. Now look at the boots and the half gaiters or spatterdashes would be black, or they'd be blackened. So we don't need to worry about those. They're going to be still black from the undercoat. And another good reason to use it. But we might just do a tidying stage later on. So I'm just going to do a little line on each one, just to show where his crossbelt will go. And yes, we might just go and do a little blob of black on the blackened leather cartridge box at the end, just to keep things tidy. Again, that's only going to take maybe a minute of our time on models this small. Again, as we've got them on a strip, that means we're holding them once and just moving ourselves along, making it a very efficient way of getting all these models painted within an hour or so. What we're also going to do is we're just going to pick out the coat tails on these guys as well, which is these here. And we're just going to do that with like a few small blobs of colour. So if you see, I'm just going to do like that, but possibly rather hard to see on the camera. So what we'll do is we'll get a good image of them when we're finished, and maybe our editing team can put a good picture in at this point and show you what they look like a bit further up close. We might do that at each stage. Oh, it's a bit messy, that one. So even I sometimes make a bit of a mess. So we're just going to do 1, 2, 3 little dots, and it looks like the back of their coats. So 1, 2, 3. They're like little triangles almost to fill in, but as long as we make a bit of an effort. Again, the beauty of this is that in these, when this unit's fully based up, some of these guys will be up close to their friends, and the back you'll hardly see, and likewise there's some of the others, their front you'll hardly see, so it's sort of painting details that you're not entirely certain won't get lost in the mix by the end. But if you've done them all, then you don't need to worry about that at the final basing stage. So pick those bits out there, those bits out here, those bits out here. Very nice. There we go. Now, we did say that we do the stockings as well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit more paint on and brush some of it off, just dry some of it a little on the palette, just so there's not quite as much, and we're just going to go along underneath and pick out the lower levels of them. So if you see, I'm just going to literally do a little level like that, and we're literally going from left to right, just flicking it across the model so it picks it up. And it just gives the impression that they've got those half gaiters and long breeches on. And straight away they're really starting to come to life now. Nice little sculpts in it. All my favourite Bacchus ones, plenty of character. And as always, heartily recommended by my own painting company and group of friends of game. I'm sorry for the detail that they put in, but the sheer scale of the different ranges that they do as well. So there's a particular wargaming period you like, from biblical through to World War II. They will pretty much have all the factions you need to match. Again, I've gone on over the edge of it here, down onto the base. I can always tidy that up with a bit of black in the last stages. If we don't want it, it's white all the way down to the bottom, we just want it to look like they've got breeches and shoes on underneath. And there is a light push all the way along, just to pick that out. And there we are, that's the next stage complete. And the next phase, let's do some facing colours. So as we agreed, these are probably going to be representative of one of the many units in the British Army at the time that had yellow facings. Good generic colour. Yellows, blues, greens, always good to go. You do get some slightly more esoteric ones. There was a purple, there's an orange, there's sort of a tawny yellow buff, there was red, and some lighter shades of blue and lighter shades of green as well. But a good basic yellow is always good for most. Right, so same again, we're going to just take a little bit of yellow and load some onto our wet palette. And keep it nice and pointy. And then we're literally going to find the areas that are going to have yellow on them. Now we're going to start with the actual line infantry, the ordinary soldiers here. So if you see, we're going to put a little bit just here, and a little bit just here. And it again, a little bit just here, and here. Now they do have a little bit of a collar as well, so I'm going to do that on the collar. Try and keep it as small as possible, neat and tidy, and that's the kind of effect that we're going to be going for. So you should still see the yellow cuffs and the white leatherwork. I'm going to just go all the way along and do the same. So what we'll do is we'll come back to the command stand last, because that's where the facing colours get a little complicated. But the good news is there's no facing colours to do around the back of these men, because their hair comes down over their collar. And the facing colours generally aren't very visible on the models from the back. So we just need to do these along the front. And look at this, we will at the end just pick out the shoulder wings once we've completed the model. So that'll be one of the last stages that we do in the final tidying and detail stage. Let's just put a little bit on there. Try and make sure we don't miss any. It's quite annoying to have to go back and find there's one cuff missing. This lines us up quite nicely for the next stage, which will be the flesh and skin tones. So I'm trying to put it on quite thick, because the problem with yellow as a pigment tends to sometimes look a little bit green, certainly over black. But on the whole here, I think that's come out rather nicely. So you can see those at a distance have definitely got their yellow facings. Now, on the command stand here, we're just going to pick those bits out. So yet again, officers and sergeants, of course, would have the same facing colours. So we're going to do yellow there, yellow on the officer, and there. Pick out collars as well, and on this soldier who's with them in the line. Very good. Now, as we said, the drummer would have reversed colours, so he would be a yellow coat with red trim. So we're just going to pick out a few bits of yellow here, and on the arms, just to make it look like he does indeed have a yellow coat with red trim, and we're just going to do a little bit of yellow on the faces of the drum, just to bring it all together. I might have gone over a little bit onto the white there, but that's not a big problem. So not on this scale. Right, now we're just going to go on the back, because obviously the drummer's got a fully yellow coat. We're just going to pick out some more yellowy details there, just to give the impression that he does indeed have a nice, very squishy, very fancy yellow coat. And that should do it for that stage. Now, literally time to flesh out the models. See what I did there. So this time we're going with the Kislev flesh. Of course, any sort of skin colour will do. It's fairly light. Let's put a little of that on here. And very small areas on the models, skin areas, so we're not going to be going too mad on these. Now, of note, the sergeant and the officer here would actually be wearing gloves in part of their uniform, so we're not going to do the hands on them. So if you look really, really closely, let's see if we can get in close on this one. How's that? There we go. You see, they actually have got faces sculpted on. So you actually see eyes and noses. What I'm going to do is that you almost make like a U shape. I'm going to go along here and then along the nose like that. So it almost leaves the black undercoat in the eyeball area, the eye socket area, and that will give a little bit of an impression that they've got faces and shade there, because it's so small it doesn't really show. Now notice we got a little bit of skin tone on the musket barrel there. Again, not a problem, we're just going to tidy that later. So let's do the drummer's hand and his hand here. And this chap's hand and there. And again, there's no skin or tone to do at the rear of these models, so we'll just go along. Again, we can always do one hand, or the same hand, the same part of the sculpt, if we wish. And again, where the yellow has sort of crept in it there, we can sort of put those together a bit like that. And let's go. Face, again, we're probably going to brush over onto the musket barrel as we do this, just because of the size of the miniature. But that's not a big problem for this. Just brush it lightly over. There we go. And you see, from a distance, we're starting to really flesh out a lot more. Let's wiggle the painting strip along a little. face, face, face. Just load up a little more paint there. Again, keep just a little twist of the brush in the paint just to keep the point nice and pointy, which is the point of having a pointy point. And after this, really you only have a couple of other little stages still to do, and they're again very small details and tidying to do. A bit more paint needed there, it's a little bit washed out on his face. And almost like a U shape around the cheeks and chops, and just down on the nose area, avoiding the eye socket. And that, oops, no, mess that one up, never mind. Again, with this many models, one or two not quite go the way you wanted to. Doesn't really matter en masse. There might end up being a rear rank model who you wouldn't see the face of anyway. And the better ones you can have the front rank. All the good looking ones to the front. And well, there we have it. Next stage complete. On to the next one.
1775. The colonies are in turmoil. Will you swear loyalty to the crown or fight for liberty? The fate of a nation is in your hands. Loyalty or Liberty, the immersive new strategy game from Black Labrador Creations, brings the American Revolution to life through deep tactical card play. Command legendary leaders, outmaneuver your opponent, and shape history, one decision at a time. Every card is a pivotal moment. Deploy forces, rally support, or sabotage your enemy's plans. Will you master the art of war, or be swept away by the tides of revolution? The battle lines are drawn. Choose your side and rewrite history. Get Loyalty or Liberty now at blacklabradorcreations.com.
Now this next stage, nice and quick, we're literally going to do a little bit of wood, like a dark brown in this case. I mean, you could use a lighter brown if you wanted. This might actually fade away into the model a little, but we're going to use this to do the butt of the musket. So there's just a small amount of brown just underneath here, and we're just going to go along and pick those out. Now you could do this and you could go along with a lighter brown as well, just to give a little more definition, or you could start off with a slightly lighter brown if you wanted, but really over the top of the black we've already got, this is going to look fine for the sort of warm walnut brown look that the brown bess that the British soldiers will be carrying had. And that's literally all we need to do for that. Whilst we're here, let's do the metal. So we'll carry on with the metals on these, and then we'll do final little details on the command stand just to really make them pop out. So let's swap over to our iron breaker, and this is also going to slightly neaten up the areas where we went over with the skin tone. So again, a little on the palette there, put that away, and we're actually going to sort of almost turn it, and we're just going to draw the paint, as it were, along the musket barrel, and then we're just going to do like a separate bit on the bayonet, just so again we leave a little black area between musket barrel and bayonet, just so you can pick out the detail. It just lets it pop a little bit more. You see, we're just going over those areas where we hit it with the skin tone. That will help tidy those bits up. We can just do that as we're going along. And then we'll go along the backs of all these muskets and bayonets, just to get all the detail in. Sorry if we're fading in and out. We're trying to keep it in focus. As you imagine, the Space Marine was quite a big one to do, but these caps are a little bit smaller, so I do need to just try and make sure you can see what it is I'm actually doing as I'm painting them. But you can see again how very quick it is just to move along and just use like almost the underside of the point of the brush just to brush upwards and get the detail on like that. Over here. And then we're going to go over the back and just tidy those up. And they should be ready. So I'm going to load up a little more on here, and you've got a couple of options. I'm going to just go along the edges, hold it on the edges here, and go along this bit, just on the top, just to pick out the tips of their bristling bayonets. I'm going to be careful not to get it on the bare skin if possible, and just go all the way along. Now, of course, you could also do on the inside here, but I'm going to leave the inside just black, just to give it a bit of shade and a bit of variation and definition. Again, you can just sort of lightly brush these. Like that. Yep, just run the brush along a few at a time. You can also sort of brush along like that to get the paint on where it needs to go. A little bit off there. Just pick out some of those. A little bit watery there, but I'm just going to load it up a little thicker. Apply it on like that, and that's looking quite neat and tidy from the back. Onto a few hedges need a little tidy, maybe bring it round a little bit more, just as they'll look nice and uniform. That's the rear of them. Now, what we could also do at this stage is the cap plates. Now, on the front of that cap, they had a big white metal plate engraved with royal crest and various honours of war on it and stuff. Quite an intense piece of engraving. On the miniature, of course, you can see it's a very flat area. So we're just going to do a little bit of a light dry brush of the metallic paint. Well, this is just going to put a little bit like that, just to indicate that there is something metallic there. Now we'll do it on the drummer. Now the officer may well have gold or brass. Again, depending on the regulations of the army, if you were certain colours, then it would be certain whether white or gold buttons, indicating either sort of silvery metal or golden brass. So we're going to just go along all these guys here, just a little dab. Again, we're not actually sort of painting it on, we're almost just dry brushing a little on, a few little splodges, just to give the impression, because it was basically like a lacquered metal, so it would have been like a black background and metal highlights itself. We might be able to get a picture of a Grenadiers plate to upload here and to demonstrate what it looks like, but that's just the general impression that we're giving there. You see, it's all looking quite fearsome for the moment. Alright, any other silvery bits? I don't see any at the moment. What we might do is just pick out the details now for the officer. We may just tidy up the back a little as well, and maybe put a couple of random other colours just to give some different hair colours. So maybe a couple of blondes knocking about in the rear ranks there. So we've added just a couple of random light browns and blonde hairs just at the back. Now I'm just going to go along with black, just plain black, a little bit of water on it. Let's see here. And we're just going to neaten up the cartridge boxes there. It's on their hips. Again, just make sure you can see them. And again, tidies up any of that white we erred with at the crossbelt and whitening stage. So I'm just going to whizzle along that nice and quick. Keep them tidy. And also, we mustn't forget we're going to do the shoulder wings as well. And then detail the officer's stand at the end. While we're here, I'll get a little out black. I'm just going to do along the bases again, just to pick out and just tidy up where we had the white go a bit far down, just so you can see where their half gaiters, their spatterdashes come to. It also just sort of shows that they've got, it's a little bit more interesting, shows they've got their knee breeches on rather than long white trousers, which were a thing later on in the war, but early on in the war, knee breeches and half gaiters were very much the thing. Possibly some expensive boots for an officer. Yeah, and that's just tidied up the back of those stands there nicely. Again, just using the tip, not worrying too much about being too fancy, just keeping it nice and neat. And the thing with these 6mm models is, it's all just about being neat. You don't need particularly fancy techniques. You see, I've done really no dry brushing so much as just lightly brushing things over. No blending, nothing really needed here apart from just neat application and let the models do the rest. So, details on the command base, or the command stand. Right, now, we did say before, didn't we, that they were officers and sergeants had a more scarlet coat. So what I'm going to actually do is just put that down for a second. I'm going to get a much more scarlety red. This Mephiston red is a little lighter. I'm going to use this just to brush over and just bring out a bit more of the red. Now I'm going to put that on there. Hopefully you can see that is a very much more scarlet red, which is suitable for that. And we're going to use that for the officer's sash as well, which goes around. Now those would also be silk, usually. But we're just going to pick out the sergeant in red and the officer in red and his sash in red as well, like that. And do the arms. And we mustn't forget, of course, to make sure we can see that they've got gloves on. So I'm going to spin them around as well. Let's do the back details. And I'm going to just pick out those there. And the officer will probably have nice gold epaulets on, just to show not only that he's extremely wealthy, not certainly richer than his men, but also that he is an officer. And we seem to have a cross belt there as well, so I'll just pick that out as well. But you can see straight away how he's starting to pop as the commander within the actual unit. We'll just get the sergeant there, because every officer needs a good sergeant. It would be useless without their sergeants. Now, what runs every army? There we go. And we'll just got this bit on the shoulders there as well, on the sides. There we are. And let us now just lightly pick out. We'll use the same off-white, off-grey that we had before. That will do. Having cleaned the brush beforehand, between, of course, with the water. And we'll just literally point that on here, like that. And here. And here. And there he has nice, shiny white gloves. And as we said around the back, just pick out this cross strap here as well. Slightly for a sword belt, which is just underneath here, bit hard to pick out there. Just pick out those last details. Right, and with that off-white grey as well, we'll just pick out the shoulder wings. So I'm just going to do a little brush on the shoulders of these grenadiers for their wings. I'll do a little bit on the drummer as well, just to highlight that. I'm just going to go along each model and just do a little flick of the brush across their shoulders, just to point out they actually have modelled the shoulder wings on, which is remarkable. We're just going to pick them out there to make them look more like grenadiers should look. We'll go for the back first, and then we'll go around the front. And again, we'll keep the reds handy as well, because any errors we make, we can always tidy those up with a little bit of red. afterwards. And we're trying to just keep a bit of a gap in colours between the white we've already done for the crossbelt and the white we're going to do for the shoulder wings, just so as it pops a little bit more on the tabletop. There's a bit more paint there, I think. Let's spin around, see how the front looks. That's sort of picked up okay. We'll just bring a little bit round, but on the whole we don't want to go too mad because that'll cover up the red. But those are going to look okay. We'll just do the edges on this side. Sort of bring it around a little bit more. That should give it exactly the impression that we want. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely see from the back that those are Grenadiers. Right, we'll get a little bit of gold and we'll pick out the officer's metalwork as well. And that'll literally just take a moment or two. And then I think we're ready for the basing stage. Let's yet again, a little bit of gold, not too much, just enough. As we did with the men, we're going to wipe a little bit off and just sort of flick it into the cap plate that he's got there. Make it look all nice and fancy, and a little bit on the end of the tassels, on the end of his sash there as well. That should be fine for him. No one else needs any gold bits doing. So I think with that, we'll just do a little bit of brown, maybe do the light brown on the drummer's sticks. And I think I have just the one for that. I'm going to use others of Mornfang brown for that, which is quite a nice lighter brown. And again, you could use that for musket butts if you wanted, or you could go along the musket butts at this stage as well and just pick them out, make them highlighted a little bit more. That might be worthwhile. In fact, we could probably try that ourselves. It might be a little bit too light. But let's just do the drumsticks first of all. So we've got a stick here and a stick there. That just picks those out nicely. And now we can maybe do the Sergeant Officer's fusel. And you see that just brings that out, makes that pop just a little bit more. Should we do the others? Let's do the others. It takes a second. We'll go all the way along the line and just pick those out so they pop just that a little bit more. Again, half of these will be in a rear rank anyway, so you won't see them, but they'll be done, and that's enough for me. There we are. Nice. Right, I think now we're going to do the basings. We can look about actually getting them on their base. Okay, so final stage, well certainly final stage on the models. I'll do a bit of basing. Now, on the Space Marine, obviously we had a textured base we could work with. And here, we have to do it ourselves. So what we're going to do first of all is get a bit of this particular colour. I'm going to use Steel Legion Drab's my favourite. But any sort of tan brown will do. And if you look, we're going to just use, again, exactly the same brush we've used for the entire project. And we're just going to paint onto the base, not forgetting the edge of the metal that they come on. I'm just going to poke it between their feet, because that's going to help when we put them on our actual MDF bases, which we saw at the start of the video. And I'm just going to hasten along here, we'll do all the way along, and obviously we're going to go all along the backs as well. So I'll get on with that, and we'll see you when they're all done, ready to glue onto the base. And we're back with the final stage, or the assembly stage. So, in the greatest traditions of Blue Peter, here's some that I've made earlier. And I actually cheated a little. I've sprayed them all with a sort of a tan brown spray. In this case, it's a trench brown by the same manufacturer who does the black I use on the rest. Now, what I'm doing, I'm going to basically just glue them on. I'm just going to use basic super glue. I'm going to do 2 per base. So we'll literally just put a little line of glue across the middle, like so. Literally like 2 strips. And we're going to place eeny, meeny, miny, that one on the back, making sure that the front of the strip is roughly in the middle. Now, of course, you can use your board here and your mat to line it up and actually make sure that it's in the middle. I'll just show you that. There, like that. And then we're going to put the command base and basically buffer it up. So you see they're going to be literally in close ranks. Literally the back of the nose almost pressing on the back of the front of the nose, pressing on the back of the head of the guy in front. Okay, so if you see there, they're all in close serried ranks. Now, as we've taken them off the blue tack painting strip, there's going to be a few little bits there which are still not quite painted where we've missed, but we're just going to tidy that up once the super glue is set. So we're going to glue all these onto their bases in pairs, and then we'll be ready to do some flocking and basing. So we've glued all the strips onto their bases, and we've just gone along again with the same Steel Legion drab and just coloured along the edges just to neaten and tidy everything up. So now we're going to do some basing. Now, as we saw with the Space Marine, as we mentioned, that was already had a textured base, but this one we're going to put our own basing on. I'm going to do this quite nicely. We're going to use some basic white PVA glue you can get from any hobby shop. We're going to use some very fine grain modelling sand and some light, in this case, a spring grass coloured flock. Now, obviously, it's quite a long flock, but it'll look fine on that. It just look like longer blades of grass, as it were. So, how do we do it? Very simple. We're going to get an old brush. In this case, it's another old regiment brush, which has done good service, and when it got replaced, it's now going to be my gluing brush. So what we're going to do is take each base one at a time, and we're going to apply some glue just along the edge here and the edge here on each of the bases. A fair whack. We're just going to leave it for quite a while to dry once we do dry it, so we can put quite a bit in. So you can be quite generous with it. Not too generous, you don't want it getting stuck all over your fingers. And we're going to use the brush to sort of paint it all into the areas. Now, we're not going to bother putting it down the crack in between the 2 strips. Just need to go that far. What we're going to do is just take our gluing brush and we're just going to push the glue, as it were, in between. So make sure it's all in there. Just push it slightly in between each of the characters. I'm going to put it a little bit along the edge here and in there, just so that the flock and the sand is going to stick. And best, I'm going to be a little bit fiddly there, so just carefully hold it between thumb and forefinger, and that should be fine. I'll do the front as well. Again, so we're just lifting some of that glue, you see, and just putting it sort of in between each character, so that the base and the model sort of blend in together. I'll do that one. So we're going to put the glue on, and then we're going to do all the flocking. So what we're going to do in that sequence is we're going to do sand first of all, a little sprinkle of sand, and then literally just shake the sand off, and then we're going to straight away put the flock on so that fills in the gaps, and then we simply leave it to dry, and these should be good for the tabletop. And let's just spin that on there. So you're just going to put a bit in the middle here. Just paint the glue along that area there. Just make sure it's going to cover nicely and make sure it's up to the edge on each of these 3 bases. Just using the tip of the brush to just push the glue where it needs to go. Okay, right, so there's all the bases glued, and now we just need to put the basing materials on. So For that, I'm going to take the tub and I'm going to do it over the tub. Obviously, doing it on our cutting board here or our work surface, you can always swoop it up later. Sometimes a big piece of paper will do as well, and then you can obviously essentially recycle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each base, I'm just going to take a sprinkle of the sand and just sort of sprinkle it in the middle at the front, across the two corners at the back, and then sort of alternate that on the bases. So there's some sand and some gaps for the block. There's one. And this one we're going to do two corners at the front and one bit at the back. Turn that round. Just in the middle at the back. So give it a little tap with the fingernail as well, get some of the excess off. And the last one again, we're going to do spot in the middle. And on the back we're going to go corner and corner. Just randomise it a bit, make it more interesting. And yeah, turn it upside down, shake it, or give it a tap. And that's the sand phase, and then we're going to just do exactly the same again, but into our flock. We get all manner of different flocks for all sorts of different scales. This sort of normal flock for 28mm will do fine for 6mm. I'm going to say it just looks a bit longer, but this is just going to drop that on there, and drop that on there. Pick up where the glue is. Make sure you don't necessarily need to put it all over, because we're going to have some bits of the sandy gravel poking through. So there's one. Another method is you can literally put it in and just sprinkle it all over and then tap it off. That also works quite well, so make sure you put some around the sides and some on the back and some on the sides. Gentle tap off. And the last one. Sprinkle around the front, sprinkle around the sides. Tap off, oops. Okay, let's dump them in there. Cool. Tap off. Yeah, we can sweep those up later. If we leave those to dry, that is basically our battalion of British Grenadiers complete and ready for the tabletop. They find they look too.